Hello, my name is Lacey and I am the Chief Teaching Unicorn at Rebel Unicorn Crafts. I teach classes in Colorado, creative classes, everything from jewelry to watercolor to acrylic painting, including fluid pouring. And today I want to explore a little more about fluid painting. I'm hoping that this video can help other people, as well as some of my students who have been to one of my fluid painting classes, and 2 hours just wasn't enough to answer all of the questions. There are so many variables in fluid painting that we often can't control. Let's dive in to a few of these variables in kind of a series I'm going to be working on to see how different variables affect the results. The first variable is the type of paint you use. Again, I think I said in my first video, I am not going to be using Floetrol or some of the more expensive paints yet, at least, because I do believe that this should be a lower barrier to entry and lower cost medium, especially when you're getting started. So today we're going to be comparing Craftsmart with Sargent acrylic paint. We can see the differences, and we should also check out the costs. I will put the cost per bottle here and here, and the cost per ounce here. Okay, so now that we know the different cost breakdowns, we're going to try these out. Okay, let's get painting. Okay, so we're going to get started, and in this video we're going to have Sargent on the left and Craftsmart on the right. I did try to indicate that, but I cut it off a little bit. And I'm going to try to, as best I can, roughly mix up the same colors and use the same processes to get this done. First, I mixed up a muted purple, and one thing to take notice of is that the Sargent paint is kind of jello-like. It's not as liquidy as the Craftsmart, just some little movements make it jello-y versus the liquid. So pay attention to that, because that made it difficult to actually get the correct paint consistency. I also used a light blue, a white, a black, an orange, and I didn't put any silicone in either of these. So my plan here is to do a dirty cup, and I'm going to fill these cups up with the same colors in the same order, and I'm going to try to do them at the same time using about as close as I can get to the same amounts, so that I'm replicating the same painting as best I can using the two different paints. Let's speed up the process of filling these cups so that we can flip and then tilt these canvases. Drum roll, please. I was really nervous to try to flip these at the same time, but I wanted to make sure that they didn't sit longer than the other, so I went for it. And I got a little splash, but, you know, I tried. We'll let these sit for a second before we release the cups and get to tilting. So right away we notice some instant differences. The Craftsmart paint does move more, and I really don't think that this is because I watered it down more or thinned it more. The paints just move different. The second is that the Sargent already has big, beautiful cells forming. And I will remind you that I didn't put any silicone in either of these paints. Do you see how the Sargent is more jello-y? This was an interesting challenge to try to tilt two paintings at once. But again, I'm trying to give each the same sort of treatment so that we're replicating the same painting with both of these. I want you to pay attention to how the Sargent and the Craftsmart moves. You'll notice that the Craftsmart kind of just flows more like a liquid, whereas the Sargent, as I tip it, it kind of has to get a bulk of the paint in one area in kind of a glob, and then it will kind of roll quickly over the edge. They just move very differently. And I am seeing a big difference in the number of cells. I'm getting a ton of cells in the Sargent and not many in the Craftsmart. I actually really like how the Craftsmart one looks right now because it kind of reminds me of a marble. But I'm really loving all the cells that are happening over in the Sargent painting. We'll finish tipping these, and then we're going to get the torch out to see what happens there. Time for the gloves to come off so that I don't completely coat my torch in paint. I use just kind of a standard butane torch, and let's see what happens. The Sargent already has a ton of cells, and you'll see that I got a few in that light area to develop with the torch, but not many, whereas with the Craftsmart, as soon as I touch it, just a ton of little cells pop up and start appearing. There's definitely a difference in how the torch affects these two paints. The Craftsmart is very sensitive to it, whereas the Sargent's kind of like, whatever. Very indifferent. It didn't hugely change the number of cells that were already developing or were already there. Overall, this was a really fun activity to test these two different paints, and I don't know which I prefer. I'm wondering if I used half Sargent and half Craftsmart, if that would have a huge difference, and how they would move together because of the differences. Would the Craftsmart still try to move as a liquid and the Sargent as a jello? I don't know. Maybe that should be my next test. What do you think? Do you like the Sargent or the Craftsmart painting better? Thank you so much for watching. If you are in the Northern Colorado area and would like to take one of my classes in person, visit Rebel Unicorn Crafts or follow me at Rebel Unicorn Crafts to see my creations and upcoming classes. If you're not, I hope this helped and I'd love to see your paintings. I hope you have a wonderful day, that you get your hands messy and you get a little creative.